Big fights coming up this weekend as well. You touched on a little bit there with Cowboy headlining. Obviously, you coming from the UK background, you probably know a lot more about Darren Till than what our American friends know about Darren Till. We had Darren on the show a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of the comments in regards to him blasting Brendan Schaub and stuff like that, where we don't know who this guy is, why is he fighting Darren Till? Do you see a possibility of an upset here going down in Gdansk?
The fight game. It's the fight game, and you have someone who is so confident, absolute belief in themselves. Now, we hear this a lot, and of course the main guy that we hear about, self-belief, visualization, etc., is Conor, because he's backs it up with results. However, you know, I'm very lucky that I get to speak to fighters regularly, and I'm telling you, there's something different about this guy. There's something different about the first time he walked into a room. He made me notice him. He had a certain posture. He had a point to prove. He was very respectful, but at the same time, he was not there at that point to fuck about. Yeah. He was there to make a statement and announce his arrival. Yeah. And I very much enjoy his company. He's a really, really good guy to talk fights with. You know, he's obsessed with this stuff like we are. He loves it. He enjoys it. And that is a mark of someone who, I think, you know, if he can produce those performances in the octagon, people are just going to want to hear from him. A bit like how they want to hear from Dan Hardy, how they want to hear from Michael Bisping. He's probably more like Bisping than he is Dan. But at the same time, he's very technical. You know, he's a really good kid, and I enjoy watching him fight. I've been lucky to commentate nearly, you know, all but one of his performances so far, and he's so confident. You know, why not? You know, listen, his game is not perfect, but he's young. He's going to grow. He's got a great coach in Colin Heron, who's been around the game a long time. He's produced UFC quality fighters many times in the past, and I'm excited for him. It's difficult when you're so kind of invested as a UK guy, and we've been with Darren in studio as well. So you know, there's a romanticism associated with that. But he's fighting Cowboy Cerrone. You know, I think he could equal the most amount of wins, and if he gets a knockout, he could equal like the most amount of knockouts as well. He is a future Hall of Famer, in my opinion. You know, he's a fan favorite. And he's fucking good. Yeah. So they had come out with the very best performance of his young career in order to get the win. But why not? Why can't he? You know, he's getting better and better. So I can only see him bringing his A game. And who knows? You know, it's such an exciting fight for that reason.
I think that's the big point of it. It's like a lot of people there's people on both sides. There's people on what Darren Till said, which I agree with, is why can't he move up? At what point does he have to stop fighting guys in the prelims and actually make that jump? It's sink or swim sometimes. You just have to do it. And then on Cowboy's side, I understand the likes of Brendan Schaub saying this is a tough fight for Cowboy. You know, it's kind of a lose-lose in some ways. I don't think it's a lose-lose, but it's, you know, it's a guy that not a lot of people know. If you lose to him, you're on a 3-fight losing streak. So it is a tough fight for Cowboy. Do you see that yourself? Do you think that maybe for Cowboy this is a very dangerous fight?
Yeah, it's a very dangerous fight because Till is legit, you know, and he can knock you out, you know. I want to speak to Donald, and I'm not going to give away all my best lines and things like that, but I listened to an interview where he was talking about the Lawler fight. And it wasn't from a place of, I lost that fight. Yeah. He enjoyed it. And it was almost like he had to be reminded that it was a loss and he was on a 2-fight losing streak. And I don't know what it is, but it just seems like he just loves to fight. Yeah. You know, he loves to fight. He loves to challenge. And the spoils, yes, they're great. And I'm not saying for one moment that he doesn't want to be a champion. Of course he does. But I don't know what's driving him. You know, I think there's something so unique about Cowboy in the way that he approaches life, where he lives everything to the fullest. There's so many more layers to him than just Donald Cerrone, the fighter. There's Donald Cerrone, the guy in nature. There's the Cowboy. There's now the actor. There are so many other things that he enjoys in life that I don't know. I don't know where his head would be at with this. I really don't think that it would scramble him, or he's seeing this with any great pressure. And of course, I think the guy could probably go on a 6-fight losing streak and he will still be very much welcomed inside that octagon. So, but of course, look, he's competitive. He's going to want to win. He's going to want to go for that title. He's just a very special case. And I haven't really figured out what that is. And I kind of just want to get in front of him and speak to him about it. Does that sound weird? I don't know. No, if you share the same kind of...
Yeah, I was thinking about the fight coming up to it, and I was thinking about the question of, will Donald underestimate Till? And the way Donald accepts fights, the way he takes fights, the way he approaches fights, I don't think he will. I really think he looks at his next opponent as the best guy he's going to face. Like, if you only have to look for somebody to drop off a card, and everyone's just waiting for Donald Cerrone to come in and accept the fight. So I don't think he looks at Lawler and say, oh, this is a good guy, I have to train hard, and then looks at Till saying, oh, he's not as experienced. I just think he looks at fighting as fighting. I got to do my best. So I completely see where you're coming from.
I don't think that he is the kind of guy who is very cyclical as well. I think he's constantly training and challenging his body, where we probably, we've all looked at Conor's specific movement training and he does this, that and the other. Well actually, Cowboy does that, but on a wakeboard and on the back of a horse
while drinking a beer
like that. Whilst drinking beer. I mean, that is his vice, I guess. But he's doing a lot of stuff here, which he's still remaining active. He's still challenging his systems and things of that nature. So he's always in shape. He's but he'll just have to probably cut down on getting wild with knocking back the butts. It's just he's a fascinating guy. He really is, and I look forward to speaking with him.
It's a fight I look forward. And Rob, you were saying that you think he underestimated. I think when Cowboy was sort of taken out of context, where he said, "I don't know who this Darren Till guy is," I don't think it was disrespectful. But the one thing that Darren Till has done is, with the way what he said, and rightfully so, he's got Donald's attention. And there's no way, if there was even an inkling, I don't think there was, but if there was even an inkling of Donald underestimating Darren Till, that's gone. So I think this is going to be a spectacular firework of a headline event. One for Irish hearts a fluttering on the night as well. John, we just touch on with you is he is Irish. He's adopted Irish. is the Russian Hammer. Artem Lobov is getting in there after what you said. Cowboy had to be reminded that he lost to Robbie Lawler. The same could be said for Artem here, that he'd have to be reminded he lost the Cub, although it was a unanimous decision. Everybody thought this was going to be an absolute whitewash of a fight, and Cub Swanson was just going to absolutely wipe the floor with Artem. So Artem Lobov takes on touchy-feely in this one. What do you think here for the Russian Hammer? Are you looking forward to seeing him back in there and throwing standing hammer fists?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Artem. I've known him for a long time. Actually, he's one of the few people that I've already seen in Fight Week. We had a conversation. He was with Peter Quealy earlier, and we actually weren't talking about the fight. We were talking about other stuff. So, listen, he's always a great addition to a fight card. I think I was actually talking to him about the blueprint that none of the SBG guys had, and look at what they've achieved. Under the watchful eye of John Kavanagh, they've just done some incredible things, like uncharted territory from the get-go. Everything's been revolutionary, really, for this side of the water. And Artem's been, a big part of that all the way through. And he's just come off the back of, the Maymac craziness. And he was right in the eye of the storm. I mean, it's just fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And I don't know how you deal with that level of exposure and things of that nature. I have a small following and I'm very grateful for it. But you're very cognizant of the eyeballs that are around, and people are listening to what you've got to say. Is it right? Is it wrong? Indifferent? Whatever. And, these guys are looked at for not just what they're saying and doing, but also how they're fighting, which is kind of how they put food on the table, and it drives them. So they're very special athletes, these guys and girls. They don't get the training that footballers do coming up from when they're 15. They're kind of thrown into this, and with the most passionate fans in the world. But listen, everyone is talking Artem Lobov. If they're a featherweight, if they're a lightweight, they all want to fight him. You know, he's in most post-fight interviews that I've looked at. You know, in researching that weight category recently. So he knows he's a wanted man, but he always brings it. Super resilient. Got a great team around him, as does Andre as well, who I saw, real nice guy, complimented me on my footwear earlier. So of course now he's in my books.
Just became best friends.
Yeah, we're besties now. So yeah, he's here with Team Alpha Male, and they're always great to have around in fight week. They're such a presence. They're really fun. You know, they're fun from when they hit the ground. So good to see those teams, those great minds and athletes working against one another in the name of the sport. So that's a good fight. And you know, it's right there in the middle of the prelims, but quite easily it could have been on the main card here.
We've held you for longer than we thought we would, but I'll just ask you a quick when you're doing your research on this card, what fights have stood out to you from a technical perspective, thinking this fight is going to be a really good fight, or from a just a fun perspective, this is going to be a fun fight?
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of new faces, particularly from Poland, so I think that's, you know, there's a few there to look out for. I was actually watching, just because I was watching his fights earlier. Marcin Held is a fight that's just full of talent. So on UFC career so far. I mean, he won that fight against Lozon. I've watched it 3 times. I can't score it any other way than for him. And then he was winning against Damir Hajovic. But I can't put my finger on it. I can only say he made a terrible error. Like, it was a mistake. It was a decision that was wrong. He went for the Inamari roll. At the beginning of the 3rd round, when you're 2 rounds up, you're dominating. You can coast it. I mean, his style can be exciting. That fight probably wasn't the most exciting, but you had a close loss last time. Like, what were you thinking? And now you're really up against it. You're fighting at home, so hopefully that will go in your favour. But he's a guy who I respect his skill set a lot. He's only young, like 25, 26 maybe. He's doing everything he can. He went over to ATT for that camp, not for this camp. And it was exciting I want to see what he can bring. So he's a guy that I'm looking at. Jan Blachowicz, again, his back's up against the wall. I've spent a lot of time with Jan, super nice guy, hasn't really fulfilled his potential in the UFC. Damian Stasiak is a very, very good Polish prospect who came up against Pedro Munoz, who is a top contender. Gets Brian Kelleher, who full of beans. That's going to be a wild fight. It's some really good storylines out there. And we got Sam Alvey fighting on this card as well now.
And he's on with us in a little bit as well.
You know, he's a really good personality to have around on fight week. He fights Amiv, this guy from Dagestan, who, from what I understand, is a very, very good guy, like a really nice guy, does a lot for his community, and equally is a dangerous fighter, an M1 champion. So very exciting times. We've got champions from other organisations, strong organisations coming and fighting over here in Poland, and we got Cowboy versus Till at the top of the bill.